The abolition of slavery is often framed as a simple moral victory, but that narrative is incomplete. In reality, it was driven by a combination of moral pressure, economic transformation, and political necessity. Slavery did not end merely because people realized it was wrong. In many regions, it became economically and politically unsustainable. For centuries, systems like the transatlantic slave trade forcibly transported millions of Africans to the Americas, embedding slavery deeply into the global economy. The first major cracks appeared in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. United Kingdom banned the slave trade in 1807 and abolished slavery entirely in 1833. While often portrayed as a moral breakthrough, industrialization played a decisive role. A mechanizing economy reduced reliance on slave labor. At the same time, Enlightenment ideals and human rights discourse increased public pressure. However, abolition did not progress uniformly across the world. The case of the United States was far more violent. The Southern economy depended heavily on plantation agriculture and enslaved labor, especially cotton. As a result, abolition came through conflict, specifically the American Civil War. In 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation declared freedom for enslaved people in Confederate territories, but it did not immediately free all enslaved individuals. The decisive legal shift came in 1865 with the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which formally ended slavery nationwide. However, a critical reality must be emphasized. Legal freedom did not equal actual equality. Formerly enslaved people lacked economic independence, access to education, and political protection. Soon after, systems of segregation and discrimination, most notably Jim Crow laws, emerged, effectively replacing slavery with more indirect forms of control. These conditions persisted well into the 20th century, when they were challenged by movements such as the Civil Rights Movement. In conclusion, the abolition of slavery was not a single event, but a long and painful transformation. Slavery was dismantled legally, yet its social and economic consequences endured. The most striking reality is this: ending a system is far easier than eliminating the inequalities it created, and those inequalities can persist for generations. The story of ending slavery does not conclude with legal abolition. It only begins there. What followed was a prolonged struggle to translate formal freedom into real political, economic, and social power. The distance between those two realities, freedom on paper and equality in practice, defines the path from the 19th century to the election of the first Black president in the United States. The legal foundation was laid during the American Civil War. In 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation signaled a turning point by declaring enslaved people in Confederate territories free. Yet it was limited in scope and dependent on Union victory. True nationwide abolition came in 1865 with the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which formally ended slavery. Two additional amendments attempted to secure equality. The 14th Amendment granted citizenship, and the 15th Amendment aimed to protect voting rights for Black men. On paper, this looked like a revolutionary transformation. In practice, however, Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877, was fragile and short-lived. After federal troops withdrew from the South, white supremacist political structures reasserted control. Systems known collectively as Jim Crow laws enforced racial segregation, restricted voting through literacy tests and poll taxes, and maintained economic dependence through sharecropping. Violence and intimidation were widespread. The reality was blunt. Slavery had ended, but a new system of racial control had taken its place. The 20th century brought gradual but hard-fought challenges to this order. Black intellectuals, activists, and communities organized resistance through legal battles, grassroots movements, and civil disobedience. The mid-20th century marked a decisive phase with the civil rights movement. Landmark legislation followed, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. These laws dismantled the legal framework of segregation and significantly expanded political participation. Yet even these victories did not erase structural inequalities in wealth, education, and justice. Against this long backdrop, the election of Barack Obama in 2008 stands as a historic milestone. For the first time, a black individual assumed the highest political office in a country where, less than 150 years earlier, black people had been legally enslaved. This moment carried immense symbolic weight. It demonstrated that barriers once considered immovable could,